Chapter 283. Wu left the valley and quickly reported to the martial sect about his encounter with the cultivators. After that, he rushed back to the martial sect without stopping, only to find that the atmosphere had become much more solemn. Set up. She walked into the meeting hall and saw the sect master sitting high up in the middle of the hall, with two elders sitting on his left and right. Her expression couldn't help but turn cold. She had not seen such a big scene for many years. All the people in charge of the martial sect were gathered together. It must be for an important matter. This time they were obviously waiting for her, which meant that the matter of the demon clan had attracted their attention. Wu bowed to everyone with a serious expression, then stood in the middle of the hall like a javelin, waiting for everyone to ask. The martial sect leader was not old, in his 40s, he was in his prime. His thick eyebrows were raised high, his face was resolute, and he had an imposing aura that was not angry. In addition, his skin was extremely good, sparkling and translucent. It was a level that many women could only dream of. However, in front of an expert, this point was enough to show that his martial arts had reached a superb level, because this was the effect of washing the marrow. Only by cultivating to the Grandmaster realm would one be able to wash their marrow, but not everyone in the Grandmaster realm would be able to wash their marrow. This required luck. When a person washed their marrow, all the impurities in their body would be completely expelled, and the inner strength in their body would circulate faster, and they could store more inner strength. Every time Wu saw the sect leader, he would not hide his admiration for him. He did not know when he would be able to have the same cultivation as the sect leader. Wu, we have a rough understanding of your situation this time, but there are still many details that we need to verify with you. The sect leader said with a loud voice. Wu bowed respectfully. Yes, sect leader. If Tang Jing saw her respectful appearance, he would definitely be shocked. He had always thought that this arrogant woman would not bow her head to anyone. The sect leader nodded to an elder below. The elder accepted the order and asked in a deep voice, Wu, have the demons you encountered been completely annihilated? Yes, all the demons present have been completely annihilated. Wu said with certainty. Is that demon god the same? Yes, the demonic god was struck by that mysterious person's arrow, exploding and dying, turning into bloody light that filled the sky. Wu described. The elder turned his head and looked at the sect leader. The sect leader's face darkened as he sighed and said, Wu, do you know that the demon god is not dead? He didn't die? How is that possible? Wu was shocked. I saw him being shot by an arrow with my own eyes and exploding to death. The sect leader shook his head and said, Cultivators have many secret techniques, especially when the other party is a demon god. How can he die so easily? He had not seen it with his own eyes, but he had such confidence. Marshall could not help but be surprised, but he did not dare to doubt the sect master's words, because she had always believed in his words since she was young. Sect master, doesn't that mean that this demon god will come out in the future? That will set off a bloody storm. Marshall said in fear. The sect leader sighed and said, although this demon god is not dead, he must have been seriously injured. It won't be easy for him to recover, so from now on, we must pay attention to the information from everywhere. An elder said, speaking of intelligence, the one with the most complete intelligence system in the world is the Li Palace. Why don't we send someone to the Li Palace and deepen our cooperation? The sect leader pondered for a moment, then agreed, this suggestion is not bad. The Li Palace has been the closest to the secular world these years, the intelligence is perfect. Since the cultivators have invaded, then we should join forces with the Li Palace and guard against them. We must not let these cultivators act recklessly. Then who should we send? The sect leader looked at Wu and said, the Li Palace has never received male guests, so Wu, you should make another trip to the Li Palace. Yes, sect leader. Wu accepted the order. Also, did you find out anything about that mysterious person? The sect leader asked again. The elders all shook their heads, then looked at Wu. Wu said, this mysterious person's cultivation is not low, and he also has that divine bow, as if he is being assisted by a god. Furthermore, he is very different from the demon clan. What's the difference? Cultivators are all jackals of the same tribe, don't be fooled by him and speak up for him. An elder said angrily. The others nodded their heads. Marshal, cultivators are incomparably cunning, don't be fooled by them. If you meet them in the future, you must do your best to kill them. Yes, sir. Wu did not refute, but his mind could not help but recall that ordinary face without any special features, as well as his attitude towards the demon clan. It seemed that he did not wish to see the people suffer. It was not a pretense but a sincere one. Are cultivators really as despicable and shameless as the sect leader and the elders said? This question surfaced in her mind and she was instantly shocked. In front of the sect leader and the elders, how could she doubt them in her heart? She felt that this was blasphemy towards the martial sect, and hurriedly lowered her head in shame. Also, go to the Li Palace and inquire about the identity of this mysterious person. Maybe the Li Palace will have some clues. Since this person is a cultivator, and his cultivation is not weak, we naturally cannot let him go. The sect leader said. Mentioning the identity of the mysterious person, Wu could not help but think of the jade tablet. His heart skipped a beat, and just as he was about to say something about the jade pendant, he glanced at the few elders and forcefully swallowed his words. The sect leader noticed her expression and said without batting an eyelid, "All right, that's all for today. Elders, go back and send people to keep an eye on the situation. The situation is getting worse and worse. The demon clan must have left behind more than one backup plan. Perhaps there are other people who have obtained the inheritance of the demon clan and summoned the demon clan from other places to this world. Yes, sect master, we were really lucky this time. If we hadn't accidentally found out that the terrorists might have the support of cultivators and followed the clues to find the melon, then we might not have found the terrorists' base camp and thus destroyed their sacrificial summoning." An elder sighed. Back then she had been wondering why the sect leader would send her to the military. It turned out that he had long sensed that the terrorist organization was related to cultivators and was only borrowing the power of the military to investigate this matter. However, this was indeed a fluke. However, if not for the fact that Tang Zheng had killed all the leaders of the terrorist organizations in the courtyard, she would have been able to find out about this news earlier. Perhaps she would have been able to act before the sacrifice and successfully stop the sacrifice. Therefore, she did not have the slightest good impression of this Tang Zheng. However, she did not think that if they had arrived at the valley one step earlier, the terrorists would have fought back. Furthermore, the demons would have taken the opportunity to escape and disappear without a trace. Then, they would have been able to summon sacrifices in other places. That way, the demon god would have been able to silently and peacefully descend into this world. The elders retreated, and the sect leader walked towards the back of the meeting hall. Wu followed closely behind him, and when the two of them reached a garden at the back, the sect leader stopped and looked at the blossoming flowers in the garden. He said, "You seem to have something to say to me?" "Yes, sect leader. This time I almost couldn't come back. The mysterious person clearly wanted to kill me and he didn't hesitate to kill me." The sect leader was slightly surprised. "Why did you come back alive?" "Because I saw a jade pendant." Wu was silent for a moment, then said, "What jade pendant? It can actually save your life." "A jade pendant with the word martial carved on it." After Wu finished speaking, he stared at the sect leader. His entire body froze, and his originally abyss-like aura suddenly changed. He turned around and looked at Wu, and his gaze seemed to be able to pierce through time and space, landing on Wu's body. Even though she was a pre-celestial martial artist, she still felt as if she was about to be suppressed into the ground by this gaze. A trace of fear spread out from the bottom of her heart. She didn't know why her words would cause such a huge reaction from the sect leader, but at this moment she didn't dare to say anything. She could only lower her head deeply. After a long while, the pressure disappeared. She slowly raised her head and found that the sect leader's expression had returned to normal. He looked at her and asked, "You're saying that cultivator has that jade pendant on him?" "Yes, it's hanging around his neck." Wu said. "Describe his appearance again." Wu Gong tried his best to recall every detail of the other party's appearance, and then tried his best to restore this face with words. The sect leader muttered to himself, but his eyebrows were tightly knitted together. "Sect leader, this jade pendant seems to be very similar to the one on your body," Wu said carefully, and then his gaze landed on the jade pendant on the sect leader's waist. This jade pendant was the same size as Tang Zheng's jade pendant, and the patterns on it were exactly the same. It was obvious that it was carved by the same sculptor, and the only difference was the word on it. On this jade pendant, there was not the word martial, but the word sect. Wu had seen this jade pendant since he was young, which was why he was able to recognize the jade pendant on Tang Zheng's neck with a single glance. If it wasn't for the different word, the two jade pendants would be exactly the same, and it would be hard to tell if they were real or fake. The sect leader took off the jade pendant from his waist and stared straight at it. His eyes became exceptionally deep, as if he was immersed in deep memories. "Sect leader, is that jade pendant also a martial sect item?" Wu asked carefully. Back then she had insisted that Tang Zheng's jade pendant was a martial sect item. It was a preconceived notion, but now, in front of the sect leader, she did not dare to be so arbitrary. The sect leader muttered to himself for a long time before nodding heavily. It is indeed a martial sect item. It is a pair with this jade pendant. One martial, one sect. The name of the martial sect is because of these two jade pendants. What? The martial sect is actually named because of these two jade pendants. Even though Wu was calm, he was still extremely shocked by this news. She had grown up in the martial sect since she was young, but she had never heard of this matter. There was actually such a saying about the origins of the martial sect, and more importantly, how could that cultivator have such an important jade pendant to the martial sect? Countless questions surfaced in her heart, and she really wanted to ask the sect leader clearly. What are you two whispering about here? Suddenly a voice rang out. Chapter 284. The martial sect master and Wu were master and disciple. The reason why Wu was able to achieve his current cultivation was because of the sect master's careful guidance. After all, the personal guidance of such a super expert was something that no one else could compare to. Sogu 360 So. When this question was asked, the two of them stopped talking at the same time. The sect master signaled with his eyes, and Wu understood what to do. A burst of footsteps gradually approached, and a woman walked out from the 10,000 flowers. Compared to her, the blooming flowers seemed to be shyly lowering their heads, dwarfing her and losing their luster. This woman was very beautiful, but she did not have the coldness that kept people thousands of miles away. Instead, it was like a spring breeze making people feel relaxed and comfortable. Wu immediately bowed respectfully. Mistress. This woman was the wife of the martial sect master, surnamed Lan Yu. Lan Yu leisurely walked over. With a faint smile on his face, he asked, Wu, come back from this mission to accompany me for a few days. Don't always listen to your master. You only know how to wander outside every day. Wu glanced at the sect master and said, Thank you for your good intentions, mistress. Lan Yu smiled and said, I know that without your master's orders, you will not stay. Then he turned to the sect master and said, Look at my garden blooming with hundreds of flowers. If no one is happy and appreciative, wouldn't it be a waste of this beauty? That's why I asked Wu to stay with me for a few days. The sect master smiled and said, Of course, that's not a problem. This time she came back to rest for a few days. Lan Yu laughed, That's for the best, but I heard that we encountered the demon clan during this mission? Yes, the demon clan is cunning. Back then, they left behind a backup plan so that the person who obtained the inheritance could summon them back. The sect master said in a deep voice. Lan Yu smiled but did not say anything. After a long while, he said, I am not interested in these things. I only care about my flowers and plants. After saying that, he waved his hand towards Wu. The sect master signaled to Wu with his eyes, and Wu understood and followed his mistress into the 10,000 flowers. Wu was very clear that she could not tell her mistress about the mysterious person, especially about the jade pendant. This was what she had just understood from the sect master's eyes. Although she was very curious as to why the sect leader did this, she did not hesitate to hide this secret in the bottom of her heart. Tang Jing did not know that his jade pendant had caused such a big reaction. He had rushed back to the border town and returned to Yi Dingdang's side. The others did not know that he had been missing for a day. This time Yi Dingdang did not insist on getting to the bottom of the matter. Although the two of them had only been separated for a day, Yi Dingdang lay on the hospital bed. From time to time she would think about the embarrassing scene from before. Tang Zheng's image became clearer in her mind. Therefore when she saw Tang Zheng again, her heart was filled with joy. However, their joy did not last long because Sinosaurus and the others also came to visit them. Sinosaurus and the others wanted to say something but hesitated. They had received orders from their superiors that the matters regarding the practitioners in the valley must not be leaked out. However, they did mention that the operation this time was very successful, but the situation was very tragic, and the military had lost many people. Yi Dingdang's expression dimmed. Tang Jing understood and comforted him with a few words. Then this group of student soldiers boarded a military plane and returned to a military airport in the capital. Yi Dingdang was a warrior, so she recovered very quickly. She could walk alone with a cane, and Tang Zheng, who had been kicked out of the competition, also followed them back to the capital. During this time Kai Guibin and Su Hongwu met Tang Zheng alone. Both of them felt a little regretful as they actually thought highly of Tang Zheng. After all, his previous performance was very eye-catching, but they did not expect him to go crazy and start a massacre at the terrorists, which gave them a headache. Tang Zheng had disobeyed the order. Although the situation was urgent, he did not report it to his superiors. Instead, he acted on his own accord, and the key point was that he even started a massacre, almost causing the entire plan to fail. From the beginning of Tang Zheng's counterattack against the fake terrorists in the forest, the military could tell that he was a person who dared to kill people. However, they did not expect him to be so terrifying when he killed people. It completely exceeded their imagination. Later on, when the two officers saw the photos of the scene in the courtyard, they could not help but tremble in fear. If this kind of person was recruited into the army and was not well managed, he would become a killing machine in the future, and they would have to bear the responsibility. Moreover, the higher-ups had already decided to nurture Takashi, who had an equally outstanding performance and was even more obedient. As for Tang Zheng, he naturally went back to where he came from. Moreover, through the investigation of Tang Zheng's background, they found that he actually had a close relationship with people from the underworld in the ordinary balance. This was enough to explain why he was so unscrupulous in his actions, which made the military even more afraid to recruit him. Tang Zheng was not regretful. This was the result he had hoped for. After bidding farewell to the two leaders, he returned to Yanqing University with the others. Yanqing University prepared a grand military training summary and commendation ceremony. After the various student formations in the school were inspected, other than Tang Zheng, the other 19 people from the two classes went up to the stage to receive the award. Tang Zheng sat below the stage. He was not disappointed, nor was he dissatisfied. Instead, his heart was as calm as water, because the award was insignificant to him. He was silently digesting the gains from this trip to the valley. Without a doubt, the biggest gain was that he knew the miraculous use of the heaven-shocking bow and the dragon-trapped rope. The dragon-trapped rope was a profound-level magic treasure, and an offensive magic treasure at that. It was much more powerful than the War Soul Sword, so how could he not be happy? However, the only thing that made his heart ache was that the War Soul Sword was damaged, and he was afraid that he would not be able to unleash its power for a while. He urgently needed to go to a place with Densin Qi so that the War Soul Sword could absorb it and recover its strength. Fortunately, the capital was an ancient city that had been passed down for hundreds of years, so it was not difficult to find a place with Densin Qi. Therefore, he prepared to ask Feng Yong about it later. This time, they returned in a hurry and were directly pulled to the commendation ceremony, so he did not have the time to bring Xiaobai back. On the stage, Gauda was in high spirits. His harvest this time was also quite big. He had registered with the military and even showed his face in front of the school's leaders. More importantly, he had obtained that jade tablet. The high-grade cultivation technique written on it made him go wild with joy. However, he did not have the time to cultivate yet. After the commendation ceremony, he would start cultivating and strive to surpass Tang Zheng as soon as possible. He subconsciously looked towards the crowd and locked onto Tang Zheng from afar. The corner of his mouth could not help but curl up into a sneer. Tang Zheng, the glory that belongs to me is about to arrive. I will ruthlessly trample you under my feet, so that you will never be able to rise again. Sinosaurus and the others were not that happy. Although they had received the commendation, when they thought of Tang Zheng they felt sad. Originally, this glory also belonged to Tang Zheng, but at the last moment he was kicked out of the game. The other people who did not know what was going on looked at Tang Zheng with complicated gazes. Many of them were filled with disdain and ridicule. Back then, out of the 20 people, only Tang Zheng had obtained nothing. How could they not pay attention to him? After receiving the award and stepping down from the stage, the members of 502 gathered around Tang Zheng. Sinosaurus said indignantly, "Oh, A3, if it wasn't for your advice, I wouldn't even bother to go up to receive this award. It's so King boring." Zhou Yin also nodded in agreement. Yes, when I saw that despicable Takashi's smug look, I felt very unhappy. Wang Shiji was slightly calm as he said, "The one who laughs at the end is the true hero. I believe that OL3 will be the one who laughs at the end." Sinosaurus said, "Of course, who is our OL3? He's the most powerful person in 502. He can crush Takashi under him at any moment." "Damn, don't make it sound so disgusting. I don't have that kind of hobby." Tang Zheng was very touched by his brother's words of justice and scolded with a smile. Zhou Yin chuckled, "I believe that OL3 is definitely straight. Didn't you see how he and Yi Dingdang were flirting with each other? How could he be gay?" Sinosaurus touched Tang Zheng's shoulder and said, "Oh, A3, tell me honestly, when we were on the mission, did anything happen between you and Yi Dingdang?" Tang Zheng could not help but roll his eyes at him and said, "Do you think I'm you? I'm a very upright person." "That's right, it's because you're an upright person that I asked you if anything happened between you and her. If you were gay, I wouldn't even ask you this question," Sinosaurus said vulgarly. The other two also had cheap expressions on their faces as they stared at him without blinking. Tang Zheng said helplessly, Hey you two, don't be led astray by OL2, especially you boss. You are such a simple child, you must not learn from him. Tisk, you've already taken Yi Ding Dang away and you're still pure my ass, so you don't have the qualifications to criticize me. Sinosaurus scoffed. Sigh, a great beauty like Yi Ding Dang is no longer mine. It seems like I can only find another target. Zhou Yin rolled his eyes and said, Oh, 3, you're happy alone, but you can't forget us brothers. Yi Ding Dang is from the School of Business and Management, so there must be a lot of beauties. How about we have a sorority with their dorm? When Sinosaurus heard this, he immediately said energetically, Right, a sorority. There are a lot of beauties in the School of Business and Management, so we definitely can't let go of such a great opportunity. 3, if you don't agree, then you'll be the public enemy of our entire dorm. Boss, you should also express your stance. Wang Shiji nodded with a serious expression. I agree with the organization's decision. Tang Jing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was too lazy to explain his relationship with Yi Ding Dang, so he reluctantly agreed. Speaking of which, these people must have held back so much in high school that they couldn't help but be in heat once they entered university. After the commendation ceremony ended, Tang Jing saw Yi Ding Dang from afar, so he directly walked over. When the others saw this, they whispered to each other. How could this person be so thick-skinned? He didn't make any contributions, but he still had the nerve to look for Yi Ding Dang. Those who originally thought highly of Tang Jing instantly felt that he was a toad wanting to eat swan meat. Seeing Tang Jing walking over, Yi Ding Dang stopped in her tracks and smiled. With a bit of shyness and guilt, she said, I'm sorry that you didn't receive the commendation this time. I'm not interested in this kind of commendation. Tang Jing said generously, I'm looking for you for something. Our dorm wants to have a sorority with your dorm. Sorority? Yi Ding Dang was stunned for a moment, then immediately came to a realization and asked mischievously, What's wrong? Which beauty of my dorm have you taken a fancy to? Do you want me to pull some strings for you? Don't make fun of me, I already have a girlfriend. This is the idea of the other 3 people in my dorm. There are a lot of beauties in your workplace, so you can't let others take advantage of you. Tang Jing said. Hearing him say that he had a girlfriend, Yi Ding Dong's heart darkened. She had always thought that Tang Jing wanted to step on 2 boats and be a modern-day Chin Shimmy, so she didn't have a good impression of him. But now that she thought about it, from the beginning to the end, Tang Jing didn't do anything inappropriate to her. In the beginning, she deliberately let Tang Jing pretend to be her fiancé, so as to deceive Song Yu and Yi Xuanji. Later on, she took the initiative to propose the bet. So, all of this had nothing to do with Tang Jing. It was her wishful thinking to put the blame on Tang Jing's head. A woman's mind is really complicated. If you hate a person, you will subconsciously imagine that he is evil beyond redemption. You will even put a lot of unnecessary shortcomings on the other party. And changing your opinion of a person can also be because of a small matter. Tang Jing never thought that because of this mission, his image in Yi Ding Dong's mind would change so much. Chapter 285. Yi Ding Dang looked at him with a burning gaze and said, All right, I promise you. Don't worry, seeing that we are old classmates and comrades, I will definitely let them participate in the fellowship party. Then I will thank you on behalf of my 3 roommates. Tang Jing said with a smile. Yi Ding Dang smiled and had an idea. She blinked and said, Since I've already promised you, then you should also display the spirit of helping others. Look at me, why don't you send me back to my dorm? Tang Jing saw that she was leaning on a cane, and it was indeed difficult for her to move. Moreover, she had just agreed to the fellowship party, so it was not good to refuse. All right, I'll send you back to your dorm. Hold me for a while. Yi Ding Dang stretched out a hand and placed it on Tang Jing's shoulder. The gazes of the others were immediately attracted. Who knew how many boys wanted this honor? Just now, there was someone who wanted to escort her back, but was mercilessly rejected. Who would have thought that such a beautiful thing would be taken advantage of by Tang Jing? Many people could not help but feel envious and jealous. Tang Jing did not feel that this was a good job. After all, Yi Ding Dong's contrast was too great. Being so gentle was not like her style, which made him feel a little vigilant. Hold my waist. Yi Ding Dang took the initiative to say. Tang Jing was helpless. He could only hold her waist with one hand and let her other hand reach over his neck and rest on his other shoulder. The 2's bodies were close to each other. It was the end of September, but the temperature in Beijing was still not low. The 2 of them were only wearing a thin camouflage uniform. This kind of intimate contact could even feel the temperature of each other's skin. Tang Jing could clearly smell the scent on her body. At the same time, an endless stream of pure yin energy was transferred from Yi Ding Dong's body to Tang Jing's body. Since Tang Zheng's cultivation had improved, the speed at which he absorbed the purine energy had obviously increased a lot. However, he still couldn't store the purine energy in his dantian like that night with Lu Qingmei. This was something that Tang Zheng had tried for a long time but failed to do. That night, he had absorbed too much purine energy, even exceeding the consumption of pure yang energy in his body. That was why he was able to store it. Ever since Lu Qingmei quietly left, such a good thing had never happened again. Currently, the purine energy he absorbed was disappearing bit by bit in his meridians, neutralizing with the pure yang energy. During this period of time in the capital, his pure yang energy did not erupt, so for the time being, his life was not in danger. Tian Chanzi had once said that the pure yang energy would erupt like a geyser at the age of 20. That was the most dangerous time, which meant that he still had more than a year to accumulate enough purine energy to deal with the crisis at that time. The current situation was obviously not good. The purine energy could only neutralize the pure yang energy in his body. If his cultivation increased, he would need even more purine energy. He inadvertently glanced at Yi Dingdang, thinking that if Tian Chanzi was here, he would definitely encourage him to immediately take down Yi Dingdang. Have I been very haggard recently? Yi Dingdang saw him look at her and quickly asked. No, why do you say that? Tang Zheng was confused. Yi Dingdang curled her lips and said, You don't mean what you say. Even I can see it. Compared to before, you are much more haggard. Even walking this little bit is tiring. If you're tired, then rest. Tang Zheng said. I want to go back to the dormitory to rest. Yi Dingdang had a flash of inspiration and said, Why don't you carry me? This way I can go back to the dormitory earlier. Carry you? Tang Zheng found it hard to believe that Yi Dingdang would take the initiative to make this suggestion. What's wrong with carrying an injured classmate? This? Tang Zheng hesitated for a moment. Fine, I'll carry you. You're a woman and you're not afraid. If I'm a man and I'm afraid, then wouldn't I be a joke? So he squatted down and said, Come on up. Yi Dingdang's lips curved into a smile. Her hands hooked around his neck and her whole body lay on his back. Tang Zheng felt a soft body immediately come into close contact with his back. The breathtaking elasticity made his heart sway. This taste seems pretty good. Pick up my crutches and let's go. Yi Dingdang excitedly patted his shoulder and said. She didn't feel embarrassed lying on his back at all. After all, the two of them had already experienced the awkward and ambiguous scene in the bathroom. Yi Dingdang's mental endurance had also been trained. Moreover, her impression of Tang Zheng had also undergone a drastic change. In short, Yi Dingdang was actually a decisive girl who dared to love and hate. The problems that she had been struggling with in the past were no longer problems. Tang Zheng was the hero in her heart. Tang Zheng carried her on his back. His left hand held the crutches, and his right hand hugged her springy but to prevent her from sliding down. This scene really shocked everyone. The members of room 502 were dumbstruck. It was as if they had been immobilized. They only came back to their senses when they saw the two of them disappear. Sinosaurus shouted, Damn, Lao San is the awesome one. Is this called hugging a beauty? Wang Shiji shook his head and said seriously, This is called carrying a beauty back. Zhou Yan hurriedly nodded his head. Not only is Zoel San skilled, even I am ashamed of my ability to pick up girls. Our archaeology department has been silent for so many years, and finally, an awesome person has appeared. When Zoel San comes back, we have to ask him for advice on a few moves. When the fellowship party comes back, we can use these 18 kinds of martial arts to take down the beauty. Sinosaurus clenched his fists and said solemnly. Zhou Yan and Wang Shiji nodded their heads at the same time. What Lao Er said is true. Tang Zheng carried Yi Dingdang across half of the campus before arriving at the female dormitory. Along the way he had gained a lot of attention. Of course, if he was carrying an average-looking girl on his back, he wouldn't have such a high number of people turning their heads. The key was that Yi Dingdang was simply too beautiful and also very famous. The photo of Yi Dingdang speaking on behalf of the freshmen had already spread throughout the Yenqing University's forum. The Yenqing University's forum was much more famous than the Pengcheng International School's forum, and there were a lot of visitors. Every year, the photos of the beautiful female freshmen would be uploaded to the forum, and this year Yi Dingdang was the only one who stood out. Her beauty was impeccable, and the key was that the valiant and heroic spirit of wearing the military uniform was something that no one else could compare to. Although Ding Xiaowan was also very beautiful, it was the beauty of a small family and could not be compared to Yi Dingdang. After a month of fermenting, all the students in the school had an impression of Yi Dingdang, especially those seniors. All of them were rubbing their fists and rubbing their palms, wanting to use their own plan to chase after the beauty and take Yi Dingdang into their arms. Unexpectedly, before they could even make a move, Yi Dingdang was actually carried around the campus by a brat. This gave them a tragic feeling of dying before they could even succeed. Yi Dingdang enjoyed those complicated gazes and snickered. Seeing Tang Jing struggling to move forward, he couldn't help but feel a sweet taste in his heart. This feeling was so good. This kind of sunlight was so good. This kind of campus life was so good. However, Tang Jing did not feel good. Even though he was thick-skinned, he was still distracted by those pairs of eyes that wanted to swallow him alive. Especially when they arrived at the female dormitory, the dormitory manager's vigilant gaze made him feel even worse. He wanted to put Yi Dingdang down, but she stopped him. "What are you doing?" "I'm already at your dormitory." "Then let's go upstairs." Tang Jing was shocked. We still have to go upstairs?" "Of course it's not convenient for me to go upstairs. It's very troublesome for me to go upstairs. Just be a good person and carry me up." Yi Dingdang softly begged. AI who told Tang Jing to be a guy who was amenable to coaxing but not coercion. Seeing that they were old classmates, he had to help. "Stop." Seeing Tang Jing walk into the dormitory hall, the dormitory manager immediately came out with her hands on her hips and glared at him. This was her territory. No matter how capable Tang Jing was, he had to be restrained by her. "What are you doing?" the dormitory manager sternly asked. "Sending her upstairs." Tang Jing replied. "Female dormitory, boys are not allowed in. Can't you see?" The dormitory manager pointed at the sign in the hall. "I see, but she's injured, so it's not convenient for her to walk. Look, isn't there a crutch here?" Tang Jing quickly raised the crutch and explained. The dormitory manager's eyes were sharp, so of course she saw the crutch. Seeing that he answered so fluently and with a calm expression, she couldn't help but have a good impression of him. She said, "But the female dormitory does not allow boys to go up. This is the rule. How can I break the rule for you?" Tang Jing was helpless. He could only say to Yi Dingdang, "Then I can only send you up to here." Yi Dingdang would not give up just like that, as she hurriedly squeezed out a sickly smile towards the auntie and weakly said, "Auntie, just let him carry me up. I really can't walk anymore." "Is he your boyfriend?" "No." Tang Jing quickly denied. "Hang, if he's not my boyfriend, how can I let you go up?" The dormitory manager firmly said. "Yes, he is my boyfriend. He's just too embarrassed to admit it." Yi Dingdang quickly explained. The dormitory manager majestically nodded. "Oh, since he's your boyfriend, then I can let you go up. But remember, you must come down quickly." "Thank you, auntie." Yi Dingdang was overjoyed. Tang Jing was confused. Why did he have this privilege just because he admitted to being her boyfriend? Yi Dingdang did not give him a chance to think. She quickly patted him on the shoulder and signaled him to quickly go upstairs. Seeing the two go upstairs, the dormitory manager's face revealed a smile. She muttered to herself, "Auntie was once young. How can I not understand your thoughts? This beautiful girl clearly has feelings for that little handsome guy. It's just that she didn't expose him. Auntie can only help you up to here." Of course, Tang Jing did not know about the dormitory manager's painstaking efforts. He huffed and puffed as he climbed up to the third floor. Along the way, he met several girls who looked at Yi Dingdang enviously. To have a boyfriend carry her upstairs was truly a blessing. Yi Dingdang's lips curled up. She pointed to room 306 and said, "We're here," she said as she opened the door. Tang Jing only saw a white figure. Then several screams rang out. With a bang, the door was fiercely slammed shut. Tang Jing actually did not see anything. He only heard a series of screams. Then his eyes were covered by Yi Dingdang's hands. "What did you see?" Yi Dingdang anxiously asked. "I didn't see anything. I only heard screams." "What happened?" Tang Jing calmly replied. Yi Dingdang let out a sigh of relief and said, "It's good that you didn't see anything." Crick. The door was opened from the inside, and three girls stood at the door, eyeing Tang Jing like a tiger eyeing its prey. The weather was already hot. They had been standing in the square formation for half a day. They were already tired and hot. So when they returned to the dormitory, they could not wait to take a shower. Then they wandered around the dormitory wearing only their underwear. They did not expect the door to suddenly be pushed open. A boy stood at the door. This almost scared the three girls out of their wits. Where did this boy come from in the girls' dormitory? Could it be a pervert? This thought flashed through their minds and they instinctively slammed the door shut. Then they quickly put on their clothes and opened the door aggressively. They wanted to see what kind of ambitious leopard dared to behave atrociously in the girls' dormitory. They did not expect that this person had not left yet. He stood at the door like a block of wood. When he saw the three of them, he even revealed a smile that he thought was brilliant. Chapter 286. Tang Jing revealed a smile that he thought was bright and sunny, but in the eyes of the three girls, it was extremely hateful. It was this person who had just opened the door and peeked at them. Before they could harshly complain, they saw Yi Dingdang come out from behind Tang Jing's head. Yi Dingdang embarrassedly said, "Sorry, I was the one who opened the door. I didn't know the situation inside was like this." The three of them didn't know where to vent their anger, so they could only glare hatefully at Tang Jing. Tang Jing was very innocent. "I was wronged. Moreover, I really didn't see anything. It was 2F king not worth it." Looking at his embarrassing appearance, Yi Dingdang couldn't help but want to laugh. Tang Jing decided to leave this place first, so he put Yi Dingdang down and said, "I've already sent you here. I'll leave first. Sit for a while." Yi Dingdang urged him to stay. Tang Jing didn't want to sit. Those three pairs of eyes wanted to kill him. He didn't dare to risk universal condemnation and immediately ran downstairs. It had to be said that birds of a feather flocked together. Yi Dingdang's three roommates were indeed not bad looking. It just depended on whether or not the three brats in the dorm had the means to catch up with them. Yi Dingdang was helped into the room by her roommates. Then, the three of them looked at her with a smirk. One of them asked, "Dingdang, tell us honestly. What is your relationship with this handsome guy?" "Right, during the military training, rumors about the two of you were all over the place. This time he was the one who carried you back to the dorm. If you say there's nothing between the two of you, we won't believe it." Another person agreed. "Dingdang, if you don't tell us the truth, then we were seen for nothing. I'm going to find this handsome guy to settle the score." Another person said slyly. Yi Dingdang looked at her three roommates and said naturally, "He and I are high school classmates. You already know this. Then tell us what we don't know. Do you really like him?" Yi Dingdang revealed a smile and nodded. "I didn't think much of him before, but now I think he's getting more and more interesting." "Yo, a man's smell, right? Have you smelled it? You've been lying on his body for so long. Of course you've smelled it." Another person joked. "You bunch of perverts." Yi Dingdang rolled her eyes. "My relationship with him is still very pure." "That means in the future you won't be pure." "But I don't think he's good enough for you." "Not good enough." Yi Dingdang couldn't help but think of her parents' warning. They believed that Tang Jing was definitely a rich husband, so how could he not be worthy of her? Moreover, Tang Jing was indeed outstanding. He was so outstanding that she often felt ashamed of her inferiority. The others didn't know what she was thinking. Seeing her pondering, they advised, "Yeah, Dingdang, you're so outstanding. I'm afraid the number of people pursuing you will line up from our dormitory to the school gate. He's definitely not the most outstanding. Why should you consider him?" Yi Dingdang smiled mysteriously. "Maybe she's pleasing to the eye." "She's pleasing to the eye." The three of them were incredulous. How could such an explanation work? "Well, don't talk about me. I haven't even started dating him yet." Yi Dingdang realized that she had a good impression of Tang Jing, so she didn't hesitate. She was a woman who dared to love and hate. If she liked someone, she liked them. If she didn't, she didn't. Let me tell you guys a piece of good news. Tang Jing's dormitory wants to have a social gathering with our dormitory. Let's plan a time and have a meal together. A social gathering? They're from the archaeology department. Aren't they all nerds in the archaeology department? What's so interesting about that? One of the fashionably dressed people curled his lips. The archaeology department isn't full of nerds. There are many interesting people. I've interacted with the people in their dormitory and I don't think they're stupid. So let's agree to it. Just treat it as making a few more friends. Yi Dingdang advised. "Alright, Dingdang, for your sake we'll agree to it. Actually, it's not bad if there's someone worthy of being friends with. At the very least you have to take a liking to it first." Hee, that's right. This group of women had an unusually high standard. Tang Jing walked out of the school gate and took the bus to Fengyang's school. The capital was very big and the traffic was very heavy. Fortunately, Tang Jing changed to the subway and spent more than an hour to reach Fengyang's school. The two of them had already contacted each other, so Fengyang was already waiting at the school gate. "Boss, I'm here." Fengyang waved his hands excitedly and shouted. "Whiz." A white little guy turned into an afterimage and jumped into Tang Jing's arms. Tang Jing felt that he had been hit by a strong force. This little guy's strength seemed to have increased by quite a bit. If it was an ordinary person, they would have been knocked over by it. Squeak squeak. Xiao Bai wriggled around in Tang Jing's embrace and cried out non-stop, as if he was acting coquettishly. Tang Jing stroked its snow-white fur, and it squinted its eyes in enjoyment. "Boss, I really missed you to death." Feng Yong opened his arms to give Tang Jing a big hug, but Xiaobai stood up straight and bared his teeth, as if he was not going to let him snatch Tang Jing's embrace. Feng Yong slammed on the brakes and stopped in his tracks, looking at it embarrassedly. Xiaobai proudly wagged its tail and kept acting coquettishly in Tang Jing's arms, as if this was its privilege and it was not allowed to be invaded by others. Looking at the embarrassed Feng Yong and the fear in the depths of his eyes, Tang Jing raised his eyebrows and asked, "What's wrong? Did something happen to Xiaobai?" Squeak. Xiaobai seemed to understand Tang Jing's words and shouted at Feng Yong, as if he wanted to stop him from complaining. Seeing this, Tang Jing quickly patted its head and reprimanded, "You dare to threaten others? You've really grown up, haven't you?" Little White hung its head dejectedly as it laid in Tang Jing's embrace, looking like a little wife who had been wronged as it resentfully looked at him. Looking at its mischievous appearance, Tang Jing could not help but want to laugh, but he still asked Feng Yong what this little guy had done. Feng Yong said hesitantly, "Boss, Xiaobai is not a puppy, right?" "It's not. As for what kind of beast it is, I don't know," Tang Jing said honestly. Feng Yong licked his lips and said, "Boss, it can breathe fire, did you know that?" Tang Jing nodded. Feng Yong patted his chest with lingering fear and said, "Boss, so you knew? I thought you didn't know. Xiaobai is too amazing. You don't know that day?" It turned out that one day Feng Yong encountered a robbery. Feng Yong was originally a martial artist, so of course he was not afraid. He was prepared to show off his skills, but Xiaobai was a step ahead. It opened its little mouth and spat out a flame, setting a few robbers on fire. They screamed and fled, leaving Feng Yong dumbfounded. From then on, Feng Yong carefully looked at Xiaobai, afraid that it would spit out fire if it was unhappy. Fortunately, this situation did not happen again, but he was a little scared of this little fire-breathing monster. "Boss, at that time those robbers not only said they wanted to rob me, they also wanted to catch Xiaobai and stew it." I think this sentence angered it. Feng Yong repeatedly recalled the scene at that time. When they first met the robbers, Xiaobai did not have any reaction. Instead it looked like it was watching a good show. Later when the robbers said this sentence, Xiaobai bared its teeth and spat out fire without hesitation, so Feng Yong thought so. Tang Jing understood Xiaobai's temper. The little guy did not like people challenging its dignity, not to mention wanting to stew it and eat it. It would be strange if it did not get angry. Not chasing after them and burning them to ashes was already a great effort to restrain itself. Tang Jing stroked Xiaobai's head and said, "Those people only have themselves to blame, but you have to be careful in the future. Don't spit fire, okay?" "Gigi." Xiaobai nodded, jumped up and climbed onto Tang Jing's shoulder, hugging his head. Feng Yong stuck out his tongue and said, "Boss, where did you find Xiaobai? It's so awesome. This is completely a mythical beast from the legends." Xiaobai understood his praise and proudly raised its head. "The last time I went out to travel I accidentally found it. It took me a lot of effort," Tang Jing said with emotion. Feng Yong said enviously, "I used to think that those legends were fake, but now it seems that they may be true. In the future I can't do blasphemous things." Saying this he looked at the sky as if he was afraid that the gods would blame him. Tang Jing now only knew of the existence of cultivators. As for whether or not the gods existed, he did not know. The next time he saw Tianquanzi he could ask this question. However, he did not plan to continue this topic. For the time being, he did not plan to tell Feng Yong about the cultivators. Cultivators were different, and they were being hunted down by the martial organization, so telling Feng Yong was not a good thing. Speaking of the martial organization, Tang Jing was very confused about the Jade Pendant. Martial said that the Jade Pendant was the martial organization's, but the Jade Pendant was related to his life. Could it be that his life was related to the martial organization? He could not think of the reason, and he did not want his life to be related to the martial organization. After all, he was a cultivator, and the martial organization specialized in hunting cultivators. The two of them were like fire and water. If his life was really related to the martial organization, then he would be in trouble. So after he returned to the capital, he did not take the initiative to investigate this matter, as if nothing had happened. "Boss, let's go eat first. After we eat I'll take you around our school," Feng Yong said. Tang Jing nodded. The two of them went to a restaurant outside to eat and then walked around the school. This school was slightly smaller than Yenqing University, but it was still a famous school in the capital. Along the way they saw many girls wearing revealing clothes, causing Feng Yong's eyes to almost fall out. Tang Jing's heart moved and he asked, "Fatty, didn't you say that you wanted to make the first move and take down a girl as soon as possible? How come I see you still alone?" Feng Yong said with a smile, "The flowers are dazzling and there are too many girls. I haven't had time to look at them one by one, and I haven't chosen a target yet." Then you continue to work hard. Now come with me to the computer city, I want to buy a computer. Tang Jing said. Buying a computer, I'm the best at this. Feng Yang's eyes lit up. He used to be an otaku, and he also fiddled with the Pengcheng International Schools Forum. He was much more familiar with computers than Tang Jing. Tang Jing did not have high requirements for a computer. He bought a computer so that it would be convenient for him to study in the future, and for him to video chat with Fang Shishir. In the past month, the two of them did not have much contact with each other. After all, international calls were inconvenient, and video chat was more comfortable when they could see each other. However, in the end, Feng Yong gave Tang Jing a set of top-quality computers that cost tens of thousands. Tang Jing was not short of money, so he casually swiped his card to pay for it. Boss, tomorrow is National Day and there are no classes. I'll go to your school and walk around. Feng Yong said. Okay, stay in our dorm. Our dorm mates are not bad, you can get to know each other. Tang Jing brought Feng Yong back to Yenching University. As soon as he entered the door, he was blocked by his roommates. 3 pairs of eager eyes looked at him. Chapter 287. Oh, A3, how's the social gathering going? Sinosaurus asked impatiently. Sogu 360. Soso search JDXS to download novels for free? Tang Jing laughed involuntarily and said, looking at your impatient appearance, it's settled. Owl, 3, I knew that you would definitely succeed. This is for the happiness of the rest of our lives. Sinosaurus laughed. Zhou Yan and Wang Shiji also had looks of joy on their faces. I think it's more like the happiness of the lower body. Boss, what social gathering? Feng Yong came out from behind Tang Jing and asked curiously. Who is this? Sinosaurus and the other two looked at Feng Yong curiously. Feng Yong hurriedly greeted the 3 of them as if he was familiar with them. Hello everyone, I am the boss's little brother. My name is Feng Yong, nice to meet you all. Wow, 3, you actually have a little brother. You're too awesome. The 3 of them were shocked and couldn't help but exclaim. Tang Jing laughed and said, don't listen to Fatty's nonsense, he's my good brother. He came here to play for a few days during the National Day. Sorry to disturb you. Feng Yong cupped his hands. You're treating me like an outsider. If you're OL3's brother, then you're our brother. Sinosaurus put his arm around Feng Yong's shoulder. Brother Tick, tell us about OL3's past. Isn't he very powerful? Of course he's powerful. You don't know that not only is boss's martial arts powerful, he's also our province's top scorer in science. Feng Yong said with pride. Wow, top scorer in the college entrance examination? The 3 of them were shocked. Their college entrance examination results were very good, but they were far from being the top scorer in a province. Didn't I hear that your province's top scorer in science was Takashi? Zhou Yan asked curiously. Tsk, Takashi, he dares to say that he's the top scorer in the college entrance examination. I'll blow his head off with one punch. This brat isn't a good person at all. By the way, I remember that he is also a student of your Yenching University. How is Takashi doing now? Feng Yong snorted in dissatisfaction. Sinosaurus and the other 2 looked at each other in astonishment. There was actually such a complicated story behind this. From the looks of it, San and Takashi were not on good terms. Sinosaurus said, Takashi is a popular figure now. He was even commended during the military training. Really? F***ck, are your school's leaders all blind? Even praising this kind of person? Feng Yong was indignant. Wang Shiji glanced at Tang Jing. Seeing his calm expression, he hurriedly said, Takashi is indeed not a good person. Didn't you hear that he abandoned his team and ran away first? Besides, the credit for the military training this time should go to 3rd brother. It's just that Takashi took advantage of it. What? Takashi dares to steal boss's credit? Feng Yong was filled with righteous indignation. Boss, you are magnanimous enough to not argue with him, but I must avenge you. Back then, he was so hateful in school, I didn't expect him to be so awesome when he came to Yenching University. Tang Jing patted him on the shoulder and said, calm down. It's just a clown. Don't worry about it. Sinosaurus and the other 2 did not say anything else. However, they were even more curious about Tang Jing's past. Just how awesome was he in high school? Tang Jing comforted Feng Yong, then used the matter of the fellowship to change the topic. The few of them discussed when to hold this fellowship party. Zhou Yan suggested, of course, the sooner the better. Tomorrow is National Day and everyone is free. Why don't we have lunch together tomorrow, and then we can stroll around in the afternoon. If we like each other, we can take advantage of the next few days of vacation to go sightseeing and improve our relationship. Wang Shiji and Sinosaurus nodded in agreement. Boss, can I go with you? I also want to see the beauties in your school. Feng Yong volunteered. Of course. Before Tang Zheng could say anything, Sinosaurus had already said, we are all brothers. Of course we will share our joys and sorrows. I just don't know how the quality of the girls in Yi Dingdong's dormitory is. The quality is very good. Tang Zheng recalled the appearance of the three girls and said, really? Third brother, you've seen them? Yes, I saw them when I sent Ding Dang back to the dormitory. Wow, you actually went into the girls' dormitory. How was it inside? Were there many tempting things? Sinosaurus asked impatiently. There's no such thing as what you think. I just wandered around the door. Sigh, one day I'll take the opportunity to sneak into the girls' dormitory and take a look. Sinosaurus said longingly. Then you have to find a girlfriend first. Do you think you're third brother? You're so charming that you can even get a beauty like Yi Ding Dang. Zhou Yin said. Wow, boss, you really got sister Ding Dang? Ah, I knew you could do it. You don't know that my boss is a love saint. Back then, even sister Ding Dang chased after him. Feng Yong said with a smile of exultation. Sinosaurus and the other two were shocked and exclaimed, damn, third brother, how many more awesome things do you have? Tell us all together so that we can worship you. You're making our hearts unable to take it. Wang Shiji said seriously, yes, this is the unanimous decision of the dormitory. Third brother, tell us the truth. Tang Jing didn't know whether to laugh or cry and said, it's just some trivial matters, don't listen to Fatty's nonsense, Yi Ding Dang and I actually don't have anything going on. You're lying through your teeth. You even carried Great Beauty Yi back to the dormitory today. If there wasn't any relationship, would she let you carry her? Zhou Yin joked with a smile. Tang Jing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He could only find an excuse to say that he wanted to discuss tomorrow's social gathering with Yi Ding Dang, so he avoided the trial of 502 members and ran to the balcony to make a phone call. The next day was National Day. The members of 502 woke up early in the morning to wash up and dress up. Even Feng Yong was no exception. He kept muttering, boss, if I knew I was going to meet a beauty, I would have prepared a set of clothes before I came. You're pretty handsome like this. Besides, you're just getting to know a few new classmates. There's no need to make it so grand. Tang Jing said. Sinosaurus used a hairdryer to dry his hair as he said, this is what you mean by a full man doesn't know. You have great beauty Yi, so of course you don't have to care so much about your image. This is the first time we've met a beauty, so of course we have to leave a good impression. Looking at the few of them carefully dressing up, Tang Jing noticed that Wang Shiji's expression darkened. He had only brought a total of 3 sets of clothes, and they were all very simple t-shirts and casual pants. Compared to Zhou Yin and the others, they were a little inferior. Tang Jing patted Wang Shiji's shoulder and said, boss, nowadays beauties like to return to their natural state. Their fancy dressing might not be useful, so they have to do the opposite to attract the attention of beauties. Wang Shiji smiled shyly and said, in the past I rarely interacted with girls. They all said that I should interact more with the opposite sex in university, so today I'm just going to broaden my horizons. After tidying up, Tang Jing carried Xiao Bai and the few of them headed straight for the female dormitory. After waiting for a while, 4 beautiful women walked out. The graceful figures of the 4 beauties with different styles were of course in impeccable scenery. Even the passers-by couldn't help but cast sidelong glances at them. Sinosaurus and the others' eyes immediately lit up. They suppressed the urge to rush up and carry the beauties home and welcomed them with a smile. The 4 beauties had faint smiles on their faces as they sized up the 5 of them. Without a doubt, if it weren't for Yi Ding Dang, they wouldn't have agreed to this social gathering. Seeing that these people weren't crooked, they felt relieved. Yi Ding Dang continued to lean on her walking stick, but her charm did not diminish. Amidst her valiance, there was a trace of gentleness, making her even more attractive. She saw Feng Yong at a glance and greeted him. Feng Yong, why are you here? I'm here to see boss. I heard that you guys are having a social gathering. Of course, I won't let go of this opportunity to get to know the beauties. Feng Yong said without any stage fright. Tang Jing couldn't help but look at him. This brat had improved quite a bit in the past month. In the past, his personality was somewhat similar to Wang Shiji. However, ever since he met Tang Jing, he had changed bit by bit. Right now he was completely reborn. Oh, the beauties are all here. Let's see if you have the ability to capture their hearts. Yi Ding Dang said with a smile. Let me introduce the members of our dormitory. The 3 beauties were Lu Xian, Li Fangfei and Hao Dan. The 3 of them had different outfits. Lu Xian wore denim shorts and a pair of flat shoes, showing off her youthful vitality. Li Fangfei wore a fiery red dress. Most people wouldn't be able to pull off such a color, but it was just right on her, fashionable and generous. Hao Dan wore a tutu skirt with 2 ponytails looking very cute. Yi Dingdong's attire was a bit more simple. Long pants and a shirt wrapped around her slender legs, giving off a sense of gentleness and elegance. "Where are we going to eat?" Yi Dingdang asked. Tang Jing said in a dress and added, "This is a private restaurant. It's not as noisy as outside." Fourth brother said that the food is pretty good, so he booked a table yesterday. "Okay, then let's go." "How are you guys going to get there?" Li Fangfei asked. "Let's take a taxi. It's too troublesome to take the bus," Tang Jing said. Li Fangfei said without batting an eyelid, "You guys take a taxi. I'll drive and take the 4 of us." She shook the car keys in her hand. The few boys looked at her in surprise. It was rare to see university students driving to school. This showed that the other party's family was well off. Tang Jing's expression didn't change as he said calmly, "Then you guys go first. We'll be there soon." Li Fangfei's lips curled into a faint smile as she walked towards a bright red car. Yi Dingdang looked at Tang Jing and said, "Tang Jing, take the same car as us. Otherwise, the 5 of you won't be able to fit in a single taxi." Sinosaurus and the rest were envious. To be able to sit in a car with 4 beauties was a great honor. They hurriedly pushed him and said, "Third brother, go on. We'll be there soon." Tang Jing didn't reject and nodded his head in agreement. Li Fangfei turned her head and looked at Tang Jing with a hint of displeasure in her eyes. It was as though she didn't want him to get in her car. However, she didn't say anything in the end. Hao Dan, on the other hand, turned her attention to Xiao Bai, who was in Tang Jing's embrace, and asked in surprise, "Is this your puppy?" "Yes." "Can I hug it?" "Sure." Hao Dan took over Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai cried out and wriggled in her embrace. Tang Jing could clearly see the little fellow's claws directly lying on her chest. Tang Jing really wanted to roll his eyes. This little fellow was definitely a pervert. He actually knew how to take advantage of a woman. Hao Dan, on the other hand, didn't notice this point at all and kept giggling. The few of them got on the car. Tang Jing sat in the back seat next to Yi Dingdang. The car sped up and arrived at their destination. This was a low-rise building in the downtown area. It was extremely rare in the city center where tall buildings were everywhere. A waiter stood at the door and led the few of them to the private room they had booked. This building had its own universe. From the outside it didn't look like much. However, inside there were small bridges, flowing water, and pavilions. It was incomparably elegant. The few girls were a little surprised. They originally thought that this so-called private restaurant was just a gimmick. After all, a small restaurant in a residential area dared to call itself a private restaurant. However, the restaurant in front of them was obviously not of that level. Furthermore, the level was not low. Even Tang Jing was a little curious. The private restaurant that fourth brother booked was actually so high-end. Before the few of them could digest this surprise, suddenly, a huge figure rushed out from the end of the corridor. It roared and rushed towards the few of them. Chapter 288. The giant creature that suddenly appeared was a Tibetan Mastiff. It was furry and fierce. It opened its bloody mouth and directly rushed toward Tang Jing and the others. The girls immediately froze in place as if they had been immobilized. They opened their mouths and screamed. Whoosh! A small white figure jumped out of Hao Dan's arms and directly rushed toward the Tibetan Mastiff. Bang! The Tibetan Mastiff flew out like a cannonball and hit the wall. The small white figure steadily landed on the ground, wagging its tail and looking at the ugly big guy with contempt. All of this happened in the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint. Even Tang Jing did not have the time to react before Little White made a counterattack as smoothly as flowing water. The screams came to an abrupt end. Everyone stared at the scene in bewilderment. How could the Tibetan Mastiff fly out? It seemed that it was hit by Xiao Bai. But how could it be? Even though Yi Dingdang was experienced and knowledgeable, she couldn't find a reasonable explanation. Moreover, she had seen Xiao Bai a long time ago. She didn't have any special feelings for it. How could it be so monstrous? It was like its owner. Xiao Bai showed off his strength and squeaked twice at the Tibetan Mastiff. The Tibetan Mastiff, which had stumbled to get up, stared at Xiao Bai fiercely. Xiao Bai took small steps and leisurely walked toward the Tibetan Mastiff as if he was taking a stroll. The Tibetan Mastiff stepped back step by step. The fierceness in its eyes decreased sharply. It actually showed fear. These two guys, one big and one small, were completely different. But the Tibetan Mastiff was obviously afraid of Xiao Bai, which made the others feel that this scene was very unreal. Tang Jing felt that it was very normal. Although more and more rich people domesticated the Tibetan Mastiff as a pet, it always maintained a wild nature in its genes. This was also the nature of most animals. It was more sensitive to danger than humans. Other people saw Xiaobai as an ordinary puppy, but in the eyes of the Tibetan Mastiff, Xiaobai was a powerful enemy that it dared not fight against. Therefore, every time Xiaobai took a step forward, the Tibetan Mastiff would take a step back. Xiaobai strolled leisurely while the Tibetan Mastiff took a step forward. When Tang Zheng was about to stop Xiaobai from showing off, he heard an angry shout, "Who hurt my General Weiwu?" There was a wound on the Tibetan Mastiff's back. Blood dyed its black fur red. This was the result of hitting the wall just now. A burly man walked out in large strides. He was incomparably furious, glaring at Tang Zheng's group. "Who hurt my General Weiwu?" The man stroked the head of the Tibetan Mastiff and asked sternly. Everyone subconsciously looked at Xiaobai. Xiaobai raised his head high, looking very proud. The man glanced at Xiaobai, then automatically ignored it and looked at the only man in the group, Tang Zheng. "Who are you?" the man shouted. Before Tang Zheng could answer, the waiter had already introduced him in a trembling voice. "Young Master Feng, these are the guests who have come to eat." This young Master Feng did not even look at the waiter and said arrogantly, "When I speak, how can you interrupt?" With that, he slapped the waiter, making it impossible for her to avoid it. With a slap, 5 finger marks appeared on the waiter's face. The waiter covered his face, tears about to fall, but he did not dare to make a sound. He stood at the side, trembling. The girls were so scared by this battle that their bodies trembled. Although they were proud sons of heaven, they were still students who had just entered the university. They had never seen such an unreasonable person. "You dare to injure my General Weiwu, that means you have some skills." "Forget it, my General Weiwu has not displayed his might for a long time. Today you have the honor of seeing my General Weiwu's power." Young Master Feng said with interest. Tang Zheng had long since frowned. He was not sure who this so-called young Master Feng was, but when he looked at Yi Dingdang, she also shook her head slightly. Obviously, although she had only been in the capital for a few months, she did not know the other party's background. The capital was filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. All sorts of powers were gathered here and there were many big shots. This young Master Feng was definitely someone with a certain status. But Tang Jing did not care. He even dared to deal with the martial sect in the Li Palace. How could he be afraid of this rich second generation? "Your Tibetan Mastiff suddenly jumped out and almost hurt my companion. You don't know how to discipline your own pet, yet you still dare to be so arrogant. Could it be that there is no law in the capital?" Tang Jing asked. "Law?" Young Master Feng was startled for a moment, then suddenly laughed out wildly. "Interesting, really interesting. Today I actually met someone who talked about the law with me." Young Master Feng's eyes were filled with ridicule as he continued, "Since you are talking about the law with me, then I will take both of your arms later and grind my General Weiwu's teeth." Yi Dingdang did not say anything. Although the other party had an extraordinary background, he knew that Tang Zheng would definitely not be afraid. After all, he did not even give face to Tang Jing back then, but she remained calm and unruffled, watching the show without the slightest bit of fear. However, the other 3 people were not as bold as her. They looked at each other with ugly expressions. Even Li Fangfei's face was pale white. Didn't they just come for a meal? How could they have thought that they would encounter such a big problem? What should he do now? The other party's background was not small, and he even had such a ferocious beast. They were just ordinary students, how could they be his match? This Tang Jing was really something. What was there to show off for? At most, he would just apologize and apologize. Wasn't he courting death by being so unreasonable to a big shot? Li Fangfei was already thinking about it. If things got out of hand later, she would have no choice but to call her family for help. Li Fangfei was a native of the capital. Her family ran a small business, which was why she was able to live without worries. However, she wasn't sure if her family's relationship would be able to settle the matter in front of her. She couldn't help but feel a little regretful. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have come to this kind of social gathering. He didn't expect to fall into such a stalemate. Tang Zheng's heart was slightly angered as this person was truly unreasonable. Not only did he allow his Tibetan Mastiff to act recklessly, he even wanted to take his 2 arms. His appetite was truly not ordinary. "Alright, my arm is right here. If you have the ability, then come and take it. However, let me remind you, I'm afraid your 2 arms will suffer a little today." Tang Zheng was not afraid at all and instead said lightly, "Haha, boasting shamelessly. I've lived for more than 20 years, and this is the most ridiculous joke I've ever heard. Since you don't know what's good for you, then I'll fulfill your wish. General Weiwu, go." Child Feng pushed the Tibetan Mastiff forward, and the Tibetan Mastiff took a few steps forward. Tang Jing did not move at all, while Yi Dingdong's eyes lit up, while the other three girls trembled and almost screamed out loud. They were so afraid that they covered their eyes, as if they did not dare to look at the bloody scene that was about to unfold. Jiji! Xiao Bai suddenly shouted at the Tibetan Mastiff, causing it to immediately stop in its tracks. Its eyes revealed a deep sense of fear, and with a low growl, it leaped up and jumped up. However, it did not pounce on Tang Jing, but turned and pounced on its master, Child Feng, with its bloody mouth biting down on his neck. If this bite landed, it would directly bite off the other party's neck. This scene was beyond everyone's expectations. The three girls screamed again. Why would the Tibetan Mastiff attack its master for no reason? Had it gone crazy? Tang Jing and Yi Dingdang knew that the Tibetan Mastiff had not gone crazy, and that the instigator of all of this was Xiao Bai. Its two cries seemed to be in order for the Tibetan Mastiff to attack its master, and the Tibetan Mastiff did not even have the slightest ability to resist. Tang Jing was a little surprised. He knew that Xiao Bai was not simple, but he did not expect that he could control the actions of other beasts. Child Feng was the one who was the most surprised. He had originally been waiting for the Tibetan Mastiff to pounce on Tang Jing and bite off his two arms, but he realized that all of this was impossible. The Tibetan Mastiff that he had raised for a few years had actually pounced on him. Child Feng was not afraid, but instead he was furious. A beast was a beast, and at the critical moment he actually dared to turn around and attack. Without any hesitation, a fierce look flashed across his eyes, and with a stretch of his hands, he directly grabbed the head of the Tibetan Mastiff that was pouncing over. The Tibetan Mastiff roared crazily and struggled non-stop, impatiently wanting to bite off his neck. Child Feng grabbed its head with both hands. Facing the pet that had followed him for a few years, he did not have the slightest bit of hesitation or pity. Kacha! He snapped the Tibetan Mastiff's neck in one swift motion. Tang Jing was not surprised at all. The moment the Tibetan Mastiff counterattacked, he knew that the Tibetan Mastiff would not be able to harm this Child Feng. This was because the other party was a warrior, and his cultivation was not low either. To be able to reach the second stage of the post-celestial stage in his 20s, this was enough to show that the other party was very powerful, and his identity was not simple either. But so what? You deliberately provoked me, can't I retaliate? Tang Jing had never thought of repaying evil with good. He believed in a tooth for a tooth, an eye for an eye. Since the other party wanted those two arms, then he would return the favor. Of course he would have to remove the other party's two arms as well. However, before he could react, Child Feng's reaction was extremely intense. He felt that he had lost a lot of face, to actually be attacked by a pet that he had raised for a few years. He looked at Tang Jing with an ashen face, then looked at Xiao Bai. Just like Tang Jing and Yi Dingdang, he could tell that the Tibetan Mastiff's sudden betrayal was due to Xiao Bai's influence. In other words, this puppy was definitely not simple, and was countless times more precious than his Tibetan Mastiff. Thus, he started to have ideas about Xiao Bai. First, he took care of Xiao Bai's master, and then Xiao Bai would naturally become his pet. This pet that was even more awesome than the Tibetan Mastiff was definitely the only one, and the others could only be envious of it in the future. Thinking of this, he was very excited. However, he had to vent his anger on this brat right now. To deal with an ordinary person, he, a second-stage post-celestial stage warrior, felt like killing a chicken with a butcher's knife. However, in front of so many beauties, it was indeed a beautiful thing to display one's strength. Furthermore, there was a top-grade beauty among them, and she was even a martial artist of the 9th grade of body refining stage. He had seen countless women, and this kind of top-grade beauty was rare. Since the other party was with this brat, he could not let them go. He walked towards Tang Jing step by step, and an invisible pressure suddenly increased. Especially Li Fangfei and the other two, they almost couldn't breathe, their faces were pale, and they were trembling. Li Fangfei's hand had already touched the phone in her bag, and she wanted to call home for help. Seeing his roommate's terrified expression, Yi Dingdang comforted him in a low voice. Don't worry, with Tang Jing here, he won't be able to cause any big waves. His words were filled with incomparable confidence in Tang Jing. The three girls didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At this time, Yi Dingdang was actually not worried at all. Her heart was simply too big. Moreover, the other party's identity was illustrious. Offending such a person would not be a good thing. Before they could even think about it, Child Feng had already walked in front of Tang Jing. Tang Jing stood in front of the girls like a sturdy city wall. His tall and straight back seemed to give people a sense of security. As their eyes met, Tang Jing's eyes gradually narrowed. Chapter 289. Child Feng reached out his hand to grab Tang Jing's arm, but Tang Jing arrived first, and actually grabbed onto Child Feng's arm first. Kacha. Before Child Feng could react, his two arms were directly removed and drooped weakly on his shoulders. Both sides attacked as fast as lightning. Before the others could even see what was going on, the outcome had already been decided. Child Feng did not scream loudly, but he could not help but let out a painful groan. The veins on his forehead bulged as he stared at his opponent with his mouth agape. How could the other party be faster and more accurate than him? He was a second-stage post-celestial stage warrior, and this person was obviously no different from an ordinary person. Tang Jing glanced at him lightly and said, "I said that your two arms would suffer a little. I didn't go back on my word, right? Who exactly are you?" Child Feng's forehead was already drenched in cold sweat. There were not many people in the capital who dared to deal with him so brazenly. "Ordinary people," Tang Jing said indifferently. How could an ordinary person be possible? Child Feng would not believe it even if he was beaten to death, but there had never been such a fierce person in the capital. Could it be that he was a dragon crossing the river? The water in the capital was so deep, yet a dragon crossing the river dared to be so unbridled. Other than having something to rely on, it was because he was an idiot. However, Child Feng did not know that Tang Jing's reliance was not on anyone else but himself. Although the identity of a cultivator was different, it made him very confident. No matter what identity the other party had, he would not be afraid of anyone who dared to provoke him. Therefore he did not care about the identity of this Child Feng at all and directly attacked. Seeing Tang Jing's clean and efficient attack, Yi Dingdong's eyes lit up. This person's strength was not low, but Tang Jing had removed both of his arms so quickly. Firstly, it meant that he had underestimated his opponent, and secondly, it was because Tang Jing's strength was indeed extraordinary. The other three people's thoughts were much more complicated. Li Fangfei had just pressed a few numbers, but he had no choice but to stop and look at Tang Jing and Child Feng in disbelief. It seemed that Tang Jing had won? However, she wasn't happy because she knew that the grudge between the two of them would really be formed, and the consequences would be unimaginable. Hao Dan and Lu Xian, on the other hand, were scared stiff by this terrifying scene. Their legs went soft and they almost fell to the ground. Luckily, Yi Dingdong's eyes were sharp and her hands were fast as she supported the two. Her eyebrows danced as she said, "How is it? I said that Tang Jing would be fine, right?" The three of them didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They had a new understanding of their roommate. Did she really not know what fear was? What's going on here? Suddenly a woman walked out. "Child Feng, how did your General Wei Wu die? What's up with your arms?" The woman blinked her bright eyes. She was not afraid at all. Instead, she was interested. This woman was in her 30s and had the charm of a young married woman. Her every frown and smile revealed a soul-stirring charm. The charm of Yi Dingdang and the others was overshadowed by her mature charm. Child Feng endured the pain and asked with an ashen face, "Boss Li, who exactly is this kid?" This young woman was the owner of this private restaurant, Li Hongqing. Her beautiful eyes swept across Tang Jing's body, then paused on Yi Dingdong's face. Her face revealed a look of surprise as she said, "Child Feng, of course they are our customers." "Who is this brat?" I don't know about that. Child Feng, it's impossible for me to know every customer who comes to our restaurant like the back of my hand." Li Hongqing said with a sweet smile. "Boss Li, you don't mean what you say. Who doesn't know that this private restaurant is not something that ordinary people can enter?" Tang Jing's head moved. This was the place that Fourth Bro had booked to eat. He originally thought that it was just an ordinary restaurant, but he didn't expect that there would be so many unusual things. Immediately he became curious about Zhou Yan. Thinking back to his parents' appearances, he didn't find anything out of the ordinary. However, who didn't have secrets? Therefore he wouldn't go and get to the bottom of it. Li Hongqing only smiled but did not answer and said, "Mister, what grudges do you have with Child Feng? This small shop does not care, but this small shop has always had a rule, and that is, do not fight in the shop, so please let go of Child Feng." Yi Dingdang could not figure out Li Hongqing's background, but without a doubt the other party was not a martial warriors, and did not have any ill intentions, so he let go of Child Feng. Child Feng immediately retreated a few steps, stared fiercely at Tang Jing, and then said to Li Hongqing, "Boss Li, since you said that you wouldn't allow people to fight in your shop, then what do you say about him injuring me this time?" Li Hongqing smiled and said, "Then I don't know who made the first move, but if this mister made the first move, then I will definitely keep him and give you an explanation, Child Feng." Child Feng's expression changed slightly and said, "Of course he made the first move." Yi Dingdang curled his lips and said, "A grown man is not ashamed to lie, there are so many pairs of eyes watching here, everyone can clearly see who made the first move." Li Hongqing smiled and said, Child Feng, it seems that this young lady has a different opinion. Who does she think she is? Boss Li, do you believe her words or do you believe mine? You can weigh it yourself. Li Hongqing looked left and right as if she was deep in thought. Tang Zheng looked at the lady boss with interest. She was not a martial warrior, but this Child Feng was so afraid of her, which meant that her identity was not ordinary. Maybe there was some big shot behind her, and from the looks of it, this private restaurant was really not ordinary. Child Feng, as a woman, I am more willing to believe in women. Li Hongqing said solemnly. You. Child Feng's expression suddenly changed. All right, Boss Li, I will remember. Child Feng, take care. Remember to visit our shop again next time. Seeing the Child Feng drooping his arms and angrily leaving, Li Hongqing acted as if she did not see his anger and said enthusiastically, Pa pa pa. Yi Dingdang lightly clapped her hands and praised, the lady boss is truly bold. I've made a fool of myself. You're here to take care of my business, but you've been disturbed by this unpleasant matter. I'm really sorry. Today's meal is on the house. Consider it my apology. Li Hongqing took the initiative to say. Everyone had already guessed that the cost of a meal here would not be small. She had actually given them a lot of face by waiving the bill. The lady boss is truly a forthright person. If there is a chance in the future, I would like to come and sit for a while more. Yi Dingdang said from the bottom of her heart. Li Hongqing laughed. Welcome, a beauty like Miss is pleasing to the eye just by looking at her. I also hope to benefit from your light. Why is it so lively? Suddenly, Sinosaurus's voice sounded, and the follow-up troops arrived. Zhou Yan asked, why are you all standing here and not going to the private room? Li Hongqing looked at the few of them and said with a smile, welcome everyone. I am the boss here, I will bring you to the private room. Boss? A strange look flashed across Zhou Yan's face, but it instantly returned to normal. Li Hongqing looked deeply at Zhou Yan, then brought the few of them to the private room. Before leaving, she looked at Tang Zheng thoughtfully. Everyone gathered together and the girls started to talk about what happened just now. Everyone was shocked, they did not expect so many things to happen during a meal. However, when they heard that the lady boss was free of charge, they were extremely excited, especially when Sinosaurus bluntly said that when they came in, they were worried that their wallet would not be full enough and that they would not be able to leave after eating, causing everyone to burst out in laughter. As for the crowd, they were not too surprised by Tang Zheng's clean and efficient attack. After all, they had seen Tang Zheng's massacre of the terrorists, so today's attack was nothing. However, Zhou Yan still advised in a low voice, Laosan, the capital is not like the border area in the west. There are crouching tigers and hidden dragons here, especially this private restaurant. I heard that there are often many rich and noble people patronizing it. Today's Child Feng, I'm afraid he won't let this go easily. Different situations call for different measures. Don't you know my habits? Tang Zheng was not afraid in the slightest. Zhou Yan laughed. You are very capable, I was overthinking it. However, I heard that this Boss Li is very mysterious, this time she actually took the initiative to entertain you, it is indeed very rare. Tang Zheng looked at Zhou Yan meaningfully. In the past he had really ignored this fourth brother. He had originally thought that he was just a child of an ordinary official's family, but now it seemed that he had underestimated him. For this private restaurant is not that easy to book. You have quite a bit of power. Zhou Yan chuckled, isn't my dad a civil servant? Actually, I've only heard of this restaurant before. Today I've come to broaden my horizons. Not long after, a large table of delicacies was served. The dishes looked, smelled, and tasted good, especially the taste which made one's tongue salivate. Yi Dingdang knocked on the red wine glass, indicating that he had something to say. Everyone quietened down and Yi Dingdang coughed lightly and said, this time, we are basking in the light of these handsome guys, coming to such a grand place to eat, so in order to express our gratitude, I suggest that everyone toast first. It's our honor to know so many beauties. Come everyone cheers. Sinosaurus said as he raised his wine glass. Now that everyone is familiar with each other, I will say a few more words. If anyone sees eye to eye with each other today, then don't be courteous and make your move as soon as possible. Especially the few handsome guys, look at how beautiful these few beauties are, if you don't take the initiative then you won't have a share. Yi Dingdang said generously. Haha, since great beauty Yi says so, then we won't be polite. Everyone chatted and laughed, the atmosphere was warm, and the feeling of unfamiliarity between them gradually disappeared. With Feng Yong and Sinosaurus livening up the atmosphere, this meal was truly enjoyable for both the guests and the host. Li Fangfei would look at Zhou Yan from time to time, and the two of them even clinked cups a few times. It seemed that she had taken a liking to Zhou Yan, and Gao Daji seemed to have taken a fancy to Lu Xian. Feng Yong also had some gains and was actually chatting happily with the cute Hao Dan. Wang Shiji had come with a learning attitude today, and did not lock onto a target, so he was happy and harmonious with everyone. Tang Zheng and Yi Dingdang clinked glasses a few times, and in the end Yi Dingdang directly pushed Feng Yong away and sat beside Tang Zheng and said in a low voice, "That child Feng and Boss Li are definitely not simple. Do you want me to get my father to investigate?" Tang Zheng said calmly, "There's no need. If that child Feng wants to find trouble with me, I believe that he will be the one to regret it in the end." "Yo, you're very confident. However, I still have to remind you that the capital is filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. It's better to be careful." Tang Jing muttered to himself for a moment, then said, "Then investigate this lady boss." Yi Dingdang blinked his eyes and joked, "Are you interested in this kind of young woman?" Tang Jing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Don't let your imagination run wild. I just feel that this lady boss is very interesting. Moreover, she favors you a lot and doesn't pay attention to me." Tang Jing guessed wrong. It was not that Li Hongqing did not pay attention to him, but that he could not figure out his background. When Li Hongqing returned to his office and understood the cause and effect of the matter, he became especially interested in Tang Jing. Chapter 290. Li Hongqing's investigation of Tang Jing was superficial. When Tang Jing and the others left the private restaurant, she did not find out anything. She only knew that he was a new student at Yenqing University. Sogu 360 Soso searched JDXS to download novels for free, but for Yi Dingdang she did recognize him at first glance because she did not have the words "blame yourself" in her past life. "I really don't understand this group of profligate sons. But then again, aren't you one of them? No wonder you know them so well." "TSK, don't talk nonsense. How could I be someone like them? Moreover, I started out halfway. What kind of profligate son am I?" Yi Dingdang curled his lips and said unhappily, "Duh." While they were talking, a commercial car stopped in front of the two of them, blocking their path forward. A few fierce-looking people jumped down. At the same time, the few people behind them quickly surrounded them. They attacked from the front and back, leaving the two of them with no way out. "Come with us." A few of them actually took out their pistols and pointed them at the two of them as they said coldly. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted. He dared to use a gun on the streets of Beijing. It seemed that this child Feng was not an ordinary person. The two of them were bold and were not afraid at all. However, they said generously, "Let's go, lead the way." Tang Zheng was confident that he could get rid of them before the other party opened fire, so of course he would not be afraid. Yi Dingdang even looked like she was watching a good show. The person was stunned for a moment as if he did not expect Tang Zheng to be so easy to catch. He said coldly, "At least you know what's good for you. Get in the car." The two of them were escorted into the car and then roared away. Along the way, a few people kept their guns aimed at the two of them, afraid that they would make a move. After all, they had been told that the two of them were not ordinary people. Xiao Bai opened her eyes wide and curiously watched this scene. She opened her mouth as if she wanted to spit out fire and turn these people into charcoal at any time. Yi Dingdang glanced at the little fellow from time to time. The scene of it dealing with the Tibetan Mastiff was still vivid in her mind, making Yi Dingdang extremely interested in it. It was just that Tang Jing refused to tell her where it came from even if she was beaten to death. He only said that it was a small dog, leaving Yi Dingdang helpless. However, in her heart she did not believe this kind of lies. The MPV stopped at the back door of a private club. They walked in from the back door, took the elevator to the 5th floor and stopped outside a door. Before the door opened, Tang Jing heard a faint roar coming from inside. "I will definitely hide that brat and feed him to the dogs. He dares to go against me in the capital. This kind of person must die." This voice belonged to the arrogant child Feng from before. "Young Master Feng, we want to see just who dares to touch the earth on top of our heads." Another person said. "Yes, young Master Feng, we brothers will support you. We will definitely make this brat unable to return. To dare to provoke the 4 young masters of Beijing, he must have eaten a leopard's guts." Tang Jing looked at Yi Dingdang and asked in a low voice, "What are the 4 young masters of Beijing?" Yi Dingdang curled her lips and scoffed, "I don't dare to be interested in these hedonistic circles at all. They are all a group of people relying on their parents' shadow to bully others, so I don't know what the 4 young masters of Beijing is." "Don't speak." A few big men shouted angrily to stop him. "Young Master Feng, don't be angry. Later we'll play with that guy to vent our anger." A woman's voice advised. Dong dong. The big men knocked on the door. The room quietened down and then young Master Feng's voice sounded, "Come in." With a creak, the door opened and Tang Zheng and Yi Dingdang were escorted in. Immediately the room quietened down, and everyone's gazes turned to Tang Zheng and Yi Dingdang. Young Master Feng was the first to laugh out loud. "Ha brat, we meet again? This time you're dead for sure." The others also looked at Tang Zheng in ridicule, but after a while they looked at Yi Dingdang and their eyes lit up. These hedonistic young masters were very picky with their mouths, and had already seen countless beauties, but characters like Yi Dingdang were extremely rare. "Young Master Feng, your luck is not bad. There's actually such a beauty. Although you were injured this time, you still earned it." Someone said with a smile of exultation. Young Master Feng's gaze also fell on Yi Dingdang's body for a while, not concealing the desire in his eyes. Tang Zheng and Yi Dingdang calmly looked at this group of people. There were a total of 10 of them, and without a doubt they were all wearing famous brands and were arrogant. Tang Zheng even saw a few female movie stars who often appeared on TV beside the mechanical man. These female movie stars did not have their usual high and mighty appearance. Instead, they were extremely respectful towards the hedonistic young masters beside them. Tang Zheng was greatly disappointed, so he did not pay too much attention to it. However, he recognized a familiar person in the crowd, and Yi Dingdang also recognized this person, Yi Meiyu. Yi Meiyu also looked at the two of them in surprise, but she did not say anything. She did not rush to speak, but instead stared at the two of them as if she was watching a good show. Tang Zheng and Yi Dingdang did not say anything, but they had no choice but to re-examine this young Master Feng. Since Yi Meiyu was in this circle, it meant that this young Master Feng's family was part of the Ye family's circle. Yi Dingdang did not have much of a sense of identity with the Ye family in the capital, so even if young Master Feng really had something to do with the Ye family, she would pretend that she did not know. As a result, due to the tacit understanding between the two sides, no one knew Yi Dingdang's identity. They only looked at this beautiful girl with envy. Tang Zheng looked at young Master Feng without batting an eyelid. His arm was bandaged, and although Tang Zheng's 2 strikes did not injure his foundation, he still needed to rest for a few days. It seems like the lesson from before is not deep enough. You still want to taste something even more painful. Tang Zheng said indifferently. Hearing that, Child Feng said, "Damn, you dare to be so arrogant in our territory? Let me tell you, with that woman Li Hongqing obstructing me earlier, I couldn't do anything to you. Now that you're here, I can kill you in a matter of minutes." "Oh, looks like you're so afraid of Li Hongqing. So you're not that powerful? You're even afraid of an ordinary woman," Tang Zheng said. The expressions of the others were very interesting as they looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief. Young Master Feng finally laughed out loud. "I can finally confirm that you are not some big shot. You actually don't even know Li Hongqing's background, and you dare to come to the capital to fool around. It's not an exaggeration to say that you are an idiot." Tang Zheng was slightly startled. Was this Li Hongqing that powerful? The others also looked at him with ridicule and said, "This brat really thinks of himself as a dragon crossing the river. The capital is filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. This kind of dragon crossing the river is the fastest to die. It can't even make a splash. Yes, you don't even know Li Hongqing's name. You really are a nobody." Looking at the looks of disdain on everyone's faces, Tang Zheng was truly curious about Li Hongqing. Just what was so magical about this woman? "You don't know, and I don't have the obligation to tell you. Ask the brats below when you go to hell." Young Master Feng's face revealed a ruthless expression and said sternly, "Break his legs first to prevent him from escaping, then I'll slowly play with him." The few brawny men beside him pulled the trigger without hesitation. Bang bang. 2 bullets directly shot out of the chamber. After the bullets passed through the silencer, they only made a slight sound. Tang Zheng hugged Yi Dingdang, then quickly dodged to the side. His figure flashed, and with a stretch of his hand, he had already grabbed onto the big-sized man's wrist. The pistol flew out of his hand, and Tang Zheng snatched the pistol and pulled the trigger without hesitation. Bang bang, with a series of muffled sounds, a few big men were immediately shot and fell to the ground, crying out miserably. Tang Zheng immediately kicked the pistol away and looked at the crowd with a murderous look. This was the capital. Tang Zheng did not kill them, but the threat of these few big-sized men had been completely removed. He turned the gun and aimed it at young Master Feng. They never thought that Tang Zheng would be able to successfully counterattack under the gun. Young Master Feng was also stunned for a moment. He was a second-stage post-celestial stage martial artist, so it was not easy for him to be invincible in such a close-range battle. Moreover, from the very beginning he did not place enough importance on Tang Zheng. This was because he thought that the other party's strength was about the same as his, and that he was only lucky to injure him when he was not paying attention. But now the strength that Tang Jing displayed showed that this was not the case. But as one of the 4 young masters of the capital, how could young Master Feng admit defeat just like that? Before Tang Jing could even shoot, young Master Feng quickly took a small step back, revealing a person who had been standing behind him the entire time. Chapter 291. Once the person behind the scene was revealed, Tang Jing and Yi Dingdang both felt a chill in their hearts. This was because this person was also a martial artist and an expert at that. Even from a distance of a few meters, they could clearly feel his surging inner strength. Sogu 360, Soso search JDXS to download novels for free. Child Feng revealed a complacent look and said, "Now you know what it means to be afraid, right? You dare to cause trouble in my territory? Today I will teach you how to write the word, death." When the others saw Tang Jing knock down a few gun-wielding men in an instant, they were shocked and some of them even panicked. After all, these hedonistic sons were not all warriors like Child Feng. They were basically ordinary people, and most of them were unwilling to suffer the hardships of practicing martial arts. Due to Child Feng's family reasons, the men in his family had to practice martial arts. Even if he was unwilling, it would be useless. However, when they saw the person behind Child Feng walk out, they all heaved a sigh of relief. They had actually forgotten about such an important person. With him here, this brat was simply insignificant. Tang Jing stared at the other party. From the other party's body, he could feel the unique aura of a pre-celestial stage expert. He had already interacted with many pre-celestial stage experts, so this feeling was very sharp. He couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. These hedonistic sons were really annoying. They weren't very strong themselves, but the family behind them was too strong. Just like that Qin Lao who had protected Song Yu back then, he was a 5th stage pre-celestial stage expert. This middle-aged man did not have the calmness of Qin Lao that was as deep as an abyss, but he gave off a sharp feeling that made one's heart palpitate. Yi Dingdang said in a low voice, "This person is very powerful, we might not be his match." Tang Jing obviously knew this, but if Child Feng wanted his life, could it be that he would kneel down and beg for mercy, begging the other party to let him go? Although Yi Dingdang had revealed her identity, this battle would definitely not start, but Yi Dingdang had a look of watching a good show, so how could the proud Yi Dingdang be willing to reveal her identity? Didn't this mean that he was afraid of death? In fact, Yi Dingdang was very similar to Tang Jing. They both believed that victory was won with their own fists. No matter how strong the enemy was, they would not admit defeat, let alone use their identities to scare others. Therefore, when facing this innate master, neither of them retreated. It was as if the soles of their feet were rooted to the ground as they stared at each other without moving an inch. "Raging Inferno, take him down for me and then I'll slowly torture him to death," Child Feng ordered sternly. Raging Inferno was the name of this pre-celestial stage expert. He was an expert that Child Feng's family had roped in, and was in charge of protecting Child Feng. However, everyone in the capital knew the name of the Child Feng, and no one dared to deal with him. Thus, the Raging Inferno did not follow him closely. And this time, encountering Tang Jing was a complete accident, which was why Child Feng had suffered so much at the hands of Tang Jing. Raging Inferno knew that he had failed in his duty, so when he saw Tang Jing, he revealed his sharpness. He was determined to take down Tang Jing and show his face in front of the Child Feng. Of course, although he could not see through Tang Jing's cultivation level from the way Tang Jing attacked just now, he could tell that Tang Jing's strength was far inferior to his, so he was full of confidence. Raging Inferno walked towards Tang Jing with large strides, like a hunter facing his prey, displaying extreme confidence. Tang Jing did not hesitate to pull the trigger. A stream of bullets poured out, covering the sky and covering the earth as they shot towards his opponent. His shots were not aimlessly fired, but shot towards Raging Inferno, covering all the fatal points on his opponent's body. This person was much more powerful than the few men from before. Tang Jing had trained with firearms in the army, and even though he was not proficient, he was still an expert. His hands were steady and careful, and he was not to be outdone by many veterans who had trained with guns for many years. These bullets whistled through the air, but there was not much fire. He pushed his palms forward. Boom. A wave of air surged out and the bullets shot out to the side, shooting into the surrounding walls. This was the difference between people. Although Tang Jing was not afraid of this kind of bullet, he would not take it head-on like this. Instead, he would dodge. However, as a pre-celestial martial artist, Raging Inferno was obviously more skilled. He directly used an even more gorgeous move to counterattack, causing the eyes of others to light up. Especially this group of hedonistic young masters. Many of them actually whistled excitedly. This kind of explosive scene was rare. It was much more explosive than the gorgeous special effects in movies, and it was easier to make one's blood boil. Tang Zheng's blood could not boil at all. The moment the other party made a move, Tang Zheng was certain that the other party was really a pre-celestial martial artist. Tang Zheng did not think that he was a match for a pre-celestial martial artist, so he took advantage of this gap and retreated without hesitation, directly knocking open the door and retreating into the corridor at the same time as Yi Dingdang. He did not want to escape but to fight in a wider area. "Protect yourself," Tang Zheng said to Yi Dingdang. Yi Dingdang's expression changed slightly. She nodded and did not say a word as she watched Tang Zheng retreat towards the end of the corridor, while raging inferno chased after him relentlessly. The others also rushed out and watched the intense battle without blinking. Yimeyu even looked at Yi Dingdang with interest. Originally she thought that Tang Zheng was an insignificant and poor brat, but now it seemed that this brat actually had some skills, but it was limited to this. After all, Yimeyu had never lacked warriors since she was young, so she knew that compared to personal strength, external strength was more important. As a result, he did not think highly of Tang Zheng, and instead looked at Yi Dingdang with disdain. This wild girl who suddenly came back from the outside wanted to compete with him for a position in the Ye family. "Humph, this time I'll get rid of you first." The others did not know about Yi Meiyu's sinister intentions, and Yi Dingdang did not care either. He nervously watched the battle between Tang Zheng and Raging Inferno, and also kept a distance from the others, preventing them from sneaking an attack on her. The strong chi wave made it so that no one dared to approach and they could only watch from afar. Tang Zheng fought and retreated, and had already retreated to the end of the corridor, and below him was the stairwell. Everyone thought in disdain, "A guy who only knew how to run away. I thought he was very powerful." Child Feng's face revealed joy, but also a bit of malevolence. He complacently said to the people beside him, "I already said that this brat is nothing to be afraid of. A small river dragon wanting to cause a big wave in the capital is simply wishful thinking." Child Feng is right. Child Feng is one of the 4 young masters of the capital. This brat has eyes but does not recognize Mount Tai. Offending you, Child Feng, is courting death. Someone agreed. "Yes, Child Feng. After this battle, your reputation will definitely increase greatly. You might even suppress Yan Luyun and become the head of the 4 young masters of the capital." When Child Feng heard the title of the head of the 4 young masters of the capital, his eyes couldn't help but reveal a trace of envy. It was obvious that he had been admiring this title for a long time. Yimeyu glanced at Child Feng without leaving a trace, then curled her lips and thought in disdain, "You dare to become the head of the 4 young masters of the capital? You really overestimate yourself. Is Yan Luyun someone you can stand shoulder to shoulder with? If it wasn't for the fact that Yan Luyun already had an engagement, I would have chased after him. How could I have come to hang out with you?" Child Feng did not know what Yimeyu was thinking, otherwise he would definitely fly into a rage. Yi Dingdang was standing not far away and clearly heard this series of flattery. His heart moved and he was secretly surprised. This Child Feng is actually someone who is as famous as Yan Liyun. Could he be someone from the 4 great families of the capital? The 4 great families of the capital were the Yen, Song, Chu and Yi families, and Yan Luyun was a member of the Yen family. If this Child Feng is a member of the 4 great families, could he be a member of the Chu family? Yi Dingdang thought to himself. After coming to the capital, he did not deliberately try to understand the various powers, and these were all news that he would occasionally hear. Amongst them, Yan Liuyun's great name was like thunder to his ears, and was often mentioned. It was said that he was the most outstanding person in the younger generation, even more outstanding than Song Yu, who Yi Xuanji had his eyes on. Furthermore, Yan Luyun was extremely legendary. Although his family background was illustrious, his ability was outstanding, and he was talented. The fiancé he found for himself was an ordinary person. This ordinary person was not a natural beauty, and was only slightly above average. However, Yan Luyun was deeply fond of her, and had set aside all sorts of difficulties to get engaged to her. This was simply a real-life Cinderella story. Back then, the news of Yan Liuyun's engagement had caused many young ladies of the rich and powerful families to cry until their eyes turned red. Of course, this also made many ordinary girls who heard of this matter envious and jealous. Why didn't such a thing happen to them? Although Yi Dingdang had never seen Yan Luyun before, he was filled with admiration for this kind of person. This was a true man with iron bones. This Child Feng still wanted to stand shoulder to shoulder with Yan Luyun. It was simply wishful thinking. For the Chu clan to have such a disciple, it's truly a shame. You still have the nerve to come out and embarrass yourself. Yi Dingdang cursed in his heart, and then looked at Yimeyu and thought, No wonder the capital has a bad impression of her, hanging out with this kind of person. What kind of ghost can there be in the evaluation? This raging inferno is still a pre-celestial stage expert. Tang Zheng is definitely not his match. Then what should we do? Could it be that I have to watch him get killed? No, absolutely not. Yi Dingdong's thoughts raced as he thought of a way to deal with this situation. Tang Zheng was also thinking of a way to deal with this situation. He had already received a few moves from his opponent, causing his blood to tremble, and he was almost injured. However, he knew that he could not hold on for too long. Seeing that he had already retreated to the stairwell, and that the other's line of sight was unavoidably blocked, he had an idea and said in a low voice, "Xiao Bai, when I take a few more steps back, you will spit fire." Xiao Bai had already continued to rage, baring his teeth at the raging inferno. If not for the fact that he remembered Tang Zheng's reminder that he could not casually spit fire, he would have already spat fire at the raging inferno, turning him into a true raging inferno. Now that he had received the order, Xiao Bai's blood-red eyes gradually lit up, as if he was staring at his prey, staring at the raging inferno like a tiger eyeing its prey. Tang Zheng retreated along the stairs. The raging inferno was like a maggot in his bones, quickly following him, determined to take down Tang Zheng. Because the child Feng had given the order to take down the opponent and kill the opponent, the raging inferno had not used its ultimate move, which put a layer of shackles on the raging inferno. As a result, Tang Zheng fought and retreated, and had persisted for so long without being defeated. If the raging inferno directly used its killing move, then Tang Zheng's situation would be even more dangerous. Tang Zheng glanced at the corridor, and after confirming that no one else could see him, he bellowed, "Fire breath!" Boom! Xiao Bai opened her mouth, and a stream of flames immediately shot out, heading straight for the raging inferno. When the raging inferno heard the sound of spitting fire, it did not understand what was going on, and thought that the other party would use some kind of hidden weapon. However, it saw a ray of fire shoot up into the sky, and then he was immediately enveloped by the flames. He turned pale with fright and shouted, anxiously circulating his energy to protect his body. The flames blocked his line of sight, and he did not notice that at some point in time, a bow without an arrow had appeared in Tang Zheng's hand. Tang Zheng pulled the bowstring and released his fingers. Chapter 292. The raging fire really turned into a ball of flames and flew backwards from the stairwell. The others only had time to hear a miserable scream, and then a huge ball of fire flew out. Net fire? How could there be fire? Everyone was confused. Who was this fireman? Was it that brat or raging fire? No, it was definitely not raging fire. He was a pre-celestial stage expert. Moreover, this flaming man landed heavily on the ground, causing sparks to fly everywhere. He did not move at all. How could he be a pre-celestial stage expert? It could only be that brat. Even Yi Dingdang could not help but think so. After all, the difference in strength between the two sides was too great. Actually, she had already decided to call Yi Tianlei and ask him to save Tang Zheng. However, she did not expect that before she could even make the call, such a strange change had occurred in the battle, and a person had turned into a flaming man. Was this really Tang Zheng? She did not dare to continue thinking. Her hand that was holding the phone couldn't help but tremble. Her eyes instantly turned red, and tears almost flowed out of her eyes. Seeing her on the verge of tears and clenching her teeth, Yi Meiyu's face revealed a look of joy. "Haha, this time your little lover has been burned to death. This is great. Who told you, a wild girl, to come back to the capital and fight with me?" Because Child Feng and the rest were also overjoyed. Child Feng could not help but shout, "Raging fire, good job!" However, the cheers stopped abruptly. A person walked out from the stairwell and stood in front of the burning man. He stood in front of everyone. Immediately, the air seemed to have frozen, and only the crackling sound of the flames could be heard. Tang Zheng also felt very lucky. Just now, he had used Xiao Bai to spit out fire to disturb the opponent's mind and vision, but he did not think that this would be enough to kill a pre-celestial martial artist. Therefore, he did not hesitate to add on an attack, using the heaven-shocking bow to shoot out an arrow that accurately hit the opponent's chest. At that moment, Tang Zheng even heard the sound of bones shattering. It had to be known that the heaven-shocking bow was a divine weapon that could cause a demon god's body to explode. Catching a pre-celestial martial artist off guard was indeed enough to take his life, and the facts had proven this point. Looking at the motionless Lai Hua on the ground, Tang Zheng knew that his fatal wound was not the flame but the arrow. Of course, at this moment he had already put away the heaven-shocking bow. The heaven-shocking bow was too shocking. He definitely could not casually reveal it. As if he had seen a ghost, Child Feng opened his mouth wide, as if his throat was tightly gripped by someone. He stared at Tang Zheng with wide eyes and muttered to himself, "Impossible, how can you kill Raging Inferno? He is a pre-celestial martial artist, how can you be his match?" However, everything before his eyes was a fact. Raging Inferno had indeed failed and had paid the price of his life. Tang Zheng walked towards Child Feng, causing the others to subconsciously retreat, but Child Feng's legs felt as if they were filled with lead. He wanted to escape but found that his legs did not listen to him at all. The shock that this scene brought to him was simply too strong. Yimeyu was as shocked as him. She did not retreat and looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief. How could this brat be so powerful? How could Yi Dingdang's lover be so powerful? Unfair. Although Yi Dingdang was also filled with doubts, his eyes lit up. Hero. Tang Zheng's scene was simply too heroic, too mighty. Her heart was trembling with excitement, and the anxious look on her face that was on the verge of tears disappeared without a trace. If not for the inconvenience of her legs, she would have immediately pounced into Tang Zheng's embrace. Tang Zheng walked in front of Child Feng. The two of them were of similar height, and when their eyes met, Child Feng saw a gaze that he would never forget for the rest of his life. This gaze was abnormally cold, without the slightest bit of pity, only endless killing intent. Just by looking at it, it was as if he was in a world of ice and snow. Child Feng twitched his facial muscles with difficulty and asked, "What are you doing? What do you think I'm going to do?" Tang Zheng reached out with both hands and immediately grabbed onto the other party's two arms. Child Feng immediately screamed in shock. "You can't kill me, I am the eldest young master of the Chu family, Chu Xiaofeng. If you kill me, the Chu family will not let you off." Tang Zheng did not know what the Chu family was, and did not care about what the Chu family was. "Since you dare to kill me, then I will dare to kill you." It was that simple. Tang Zheng had always followed such a simple logic, and did not want to waste time with the other party. Exerting force with his arm, Chu Xiaofeng's arm that was originally helping with the bandage immediately twisted at a strange angle. Kacha. The bones at the elbow joint were forcefully broken. The crisp sound of breaking caused everyone's teeth to chatter and their faces to turn pale. From Tang Zheng's unhesitatingly cold gaze, they really felt a wave of killing intent rushing towards them. In front of this person, the identity that they used to think of as invincible was worthless. In front of this person they were just lambs waiting to be slaughtered. They really wanted to shout for help, but the people on this floor had all been cleaned up. Furthermore, no matter how big of a commotion there was, no one below would come to disturb them. This was something that had been arranged beforehand, and no one dared to disobey the orders of this group of silk pants. Therefore they could only watch helplessly as Tang Zheng made his move. These people's family backgrounds were generally not as good as Chu Xiaofeng's. Usually they would follow him around to strengthen their momentum, and thus try to get closer to the Chu family. But this time Chu Xiaofeng was attacked right in front of them, yet they were powerless to do anything. Then all of their previous wishful thinking would be for naught. They wanted to cry but had no tears, but Yimeyu was secretly delighted. Her originally dejected eyes gradually lit up as she thought to herself, "Hurry up and kill Chu Xiaofeng. As long as you kill him, you will definitely attract the revenge of the Chu family. At that time, no one will be able to protect you anymore. Aha, Yi Dingdang will definitely cry to death." Although Yi Dingdang did not know Yimeyu's sinister intentions, but seeing that Tang Zheng really wanted to kill Chu Xiaofeng, she was shocked and quickly shouted, "Tang Zheng, don't kill him." Tang Zheng subconsciously stopped, turned his head to look at Yi Dingdang and asked curiously, "Why?" "He's a member of the Chu family. Killing him will be very troublesome. The Chu family is one of the 4 great families in the capital." Yi Dingdang quickly explained. The 4 great families of the capital? Tang Zheng did not have any concept of this, but looking at Yi Dingdang's nervous expression, he could guess how powerful it was. However, he was even more aware of the vengeful nature of these silk pants. Back then Huangxiang was also like this. If he let the tiger return to the mountain, he didn't dare guarantee that Chu Xiaofeng wouldn't continue to deal with him in desperation. Yi Dingdang rolled her eyes and saw Tang Zheng's worry and quickly said, "Chu Xiaofeng, listen, if you want revenge then come and find the Ye family. I am Yi Dingdang and this is my fiancé. If you have the guts then come and find the Ye family." Ye family? Everyone felt dizzy. Why did the Ye family come out again? This beauty was actually a member of the Ye family. Yi Dingdang, they seemed to have heard this name somewhere before. The smart people had already remembered that Yi Dingdang was Yi Tianlei's daughter. After Yi Tianlei returned to the Ye family, he was in the limelight. Many people knew that the abandoned son of the Ye family had now become a strong competitor for the next head of the Ye family. Immediately, everyone looked at Yi Dingdang and Tang Zheng in a different light. They originally thought that they were dragons that crossed the river without any foundation, but now they knew that they had a big backer behind them. Moreover, it was a backer that did not lose out to the Chu clan. No wonder they were so arrogant. Although Chu Xiaofeng was usually arrogant, he was not an idiot. When he heard the other party's identity, he knew that he had kicked an iron plate this time. He was not afraid of the Ye family, but the Ye family was not afraid of the Chu family either. Both sides were on par with each other, so he could be considered to have suffered a loss this time. His family would not attack the Ye family for such a small matter. When he thought of this, he couldn't help but feel regret and hatred. He looked at Yi Meiyu with eyes filled with hatred. Since she was a member of the Ye family, why didn't Yi Meiyu remind him earlier? That way he could have resolved the enmity from the very beginning. There was no need to go to this step. Not only did he lose an expert, he also lost a lot of face. If this were to spread out in the future, he would probably be laughed at to death. Yi Meiyu, you bitch, your heart is vicious. During this period of time, you spent so much effort to hang out with Laozi, so it turns out that you were digging a hole for Laozi. Then you even pushed Laozi. How ruthless. Chu Xiaofeng thought fiercely. Yi Meiyu looked at Chu Xiaofeng's eyes and her heart trembled. She immediately understood the look in his eyes and her heart trembled. That look of hatred made her flustered. All her efforts during this period of time had gone down the drain. Yi Meiyu's goal of hanging out with Chu Xiaofeng was not simple. She just wanted to hang on to Chu Xiaofeng and then marry into the Chu family. This way, her position in the Ye family would quickly rise, and this would be beneficial for her father when he competed for the position of patriarch of the Ye family in the future. Back then, when Yi Xuanji had no hope of breaking through to the Great Master realm, he thought of marrying into the Song family. Yi Meiyu wanted to fight for this spot, but her reputation was not good, and Song Yu did not like her, so in the end she decided on Yi Dingdang. Later on, Yi Xuanji successfully broke through to the Great Master realm, and the crisis of the Ye family was temporarily resolved. Yi Xuanji followed his agreement with Tang Zheng and cancelled the engagement between Yi Dingdang and Song Yu. This caused the relationship between the Song and Yi families to become subtle, and it was no longer as strong as before. Yi Meiyu's thoughts were lively. After knowing that she had no hope of marrying into the Song family, she turned her attention to the Chu family. The young master of the Chu family, Chu Xiaofeng, was also a standard playboy with countless affairs, but Yi Meiyu did not care, as this was instead compatible with her usual licentious habits. Therefore, after interacting with Chu Xiaofeng for a few days, the relationship between the two of them improved by leaps and bounds, and they were now a pair. If things went smoothly, it was very likely that they would get married in the future, and at that time, it would be a marriage between the Yi and Chu families, and both sides would benefit from it. Of course, the one who benefited the most was Yi Meiyu. However, all of this had collapsed at this moment today. From Chu Xiaofeng's venomous gaze, it could be seen that he had imagined Yi Meiyu to be on the same side as Yi Dingdang, and that both sides were here to trick him today. Yi Meiyu wanted to cry, but she had no way to explain. Her heart was filled with anger as she stared at Yi Dingdang hatefully. Her perfect plan was about to succeed, but it was Yi Dingdang who ruined her plans again and again. Seeing Chu Xiaofeng's venomous gaze, Yi Dingdang did not explain, nor did she have the mood to explain. Ever since she returned to the Ye family in the capital, Yi Dingdang had been targeting her. If she could ruin her plans this time, Yi Dingdang would be secretly happy. Chu Xiaofeng, remember what I said just now. If you want revenge, then come to the Ye family. We will accompany you to the end. Tang Zheng, let's go. After Yi Dingdang finished speaking, he immediately held onto Tang Zheng's hand. Tang Zheng felt as if he had just woken up from a dream. He was shocked by Yi Dingdang's powerful words just now. When did he become Yi Dingdang's fiancé? Furthermore, he had made it public in front of so many people. Wouldn't that mean that he was going to confirm this identity? One had to know that this was just a fake identity that he had created to save her. He felt a soft palm in his hand and subconsciously looked towards Yi Dingdang. Yi Dingdang was winking at him, and he understood that it was better to leave this place first. He held Yi Dingdang's hand and walked downstairs out of the clubhouse. Yi Dingdang heaved a sigh of relief. Seeing that Tang Zheng was still in a daze, she quickly explained, "Just now it was a temporary measure. If I didn't say that and push the blame onto the Ye family, then the Chu family would take revenge on you. This way you would be in a very passive position.